So before we start this video, I do want to address that we found out, as well as most of you probably did today, that Annie Wershing, the original Tess from The Last of Us, passed away at 45, which is just crazy. So I just, Tess is such a great character in the games and in the show, and it's crazy. So I just wanted to address that before we get into the video. So, man, I don't know what else to say. It's shocking, but, Tess just can't catch a break.
Oh,
Yeah. And this is no freaking different. Except for this is real life. This isn't fiction. 45 freaking years old. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, let's get into the video. All right, so the first thing that I want to say is Season 2's a go.
Yay!
We got the announcement yesterday, I think it was. Day before yesterday?
Day before yesterday?
Pretty recent.
Yes.
This was pretty much a gimme. I mean, I figured that was going to happen regardless, but after it became the highest second episode viewer jump in HBO history, and it's like one of the most highly rated shows of all time.
How could it not get a second
yeah,
season?
It would be ridiculous if it didn't. But then, of course, this will start the controversy of the second game up all over again, which is going to be frustrating and annoying and stupid, as it always was. Mm-hmm. And it's just like almost... It's funny, with The Last of Us, it's all about reliving past traumas.
Absolutely.
In-game and out. Right? So we have to watch Sarah's death. We now had to, spoilers for tonight's episode, obviously. We now had a much sadder death to Bill and Frank. Although Frank's death was sad, and Bill's reaction to it in his life definitely was sad. But, there's those traumas. And then, there's the outside the game traumas of people bitching about a game so much that they break the internet with their hatred. So,
Boo.
Anyways, we've talked enough about Game 2 and how much we love it and how much we'll defend it till our death. Yeah. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about tonight's episode. Long time. Little comma, little pause. I know how to...
A little hesitation,
yeah. I know how to read punctuation.
Wow.
Okay, so, now, we had known or, outright figured that this was going to be the Bill episode because the show is very linear in the way that it follows the games. And so, we thought we would get some flashbacks, which we did. And then, I thought that the events from the game would play out, somewhat here and there, and maybe changing a little bit here and there. Oh, no.
Nope.
Not this time. So
Nope.
The first two episodes, you have the first episode, which is like maybe 50-60% of the episode is like, straight from the game. And then like 40% of it's like new or like changed, right? But the changes are pretty mild. The second episode is almost completely from the game. Now this makes sense because Neil Druckmann directed it and he already directed the game, so he's just like, I'm just going to do what I know. And it's almost exactly, but there's very little different outside of how the cordyceps work and the addition of the tendrils in the ground, which is rad, of course. And then we take this, complete detour in both story, right? Because for the first two episodes, we've been following Joel and Ellie, and Tess and Sarah and whatever. In this episode, we just completely pump the brakes, right? We slow everything down, and we follow Bill and Frank for 85-90% of this episode.
Yes, the majority of the episode.
So, yeah, I mean, for those of you who have not played the game, yeah, this is wildly different. But we'll talk about the opening first, and then we'll get into the Bill and Frank stuff, since the opening is Joel and Ellie. So overall, what did you think of the episode?
I mean, I love the episode. Even though it is wildly different than how things happen in the game, I still feel like the story gave us, just kind of like with all the added stuff with Tess, we get so much more context for Bill in this episode and kind of who he is and what he goes through. And I like the changes. I think that they fit with the theme of the show, which is how love can affect us. And it's very bittersweet, you know, of course. Like, it's just a mixed bag of feelings as far as the ending of the episode goes, with Bill and Frank's story. But I loved it.
Yeah, we'll definitely get much more into like the point of this episode and the themes and whatever. But for now, I mean, it's The Last of Us. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna. It would be shocking to me if I didn't love an episode. But was it wildly different than I was expecting it to be? 100%.
Oh yes.
But of course, the question is going to be, what did the game have to offer in the story or in, you know, plot points or anything that this episode doesn't, right? Mm-hmm. Like in the game, we're going to meet Bill to try to find out where the Fireflies are, pass her off, right? And we're going to get this battery. Now, we already did the battery thing, right? We switched the battery over to Robert. Tess is trying to get the battery for them to go to Tommy, which that's different, right? You know, Joel is not looking for Tommy at that point. But they switched it around, which makes sense because, you know, he now knows where he's at. Mm-hmm. And there's actually a reason to go there. So, yeah, I'm all fine with that. But we did the battery thing, right? And, you know, so what do we get from the game that we get from the episode? It's the same thing. I mean,
it's the battery.
Yeah, I mean, he wants
it's the car.
He wants the truck.
Yeah.
Ultimately, Joel and Ellie, you know, get a truck and they drive out west. Mm-hmm. This is it. This is really all that happens. I mean, there's a lot of action.
Yes.
Right? And that's the thing that's missing. It was a much slower episode than I was expecting. Right? I was expecting the traps. I was expecting Joel to get caught in his trap where he goes upside down and has to shoot zombies. Stuff like that. Anything like that. We get no action of any sort from Joel and Ellie in this episode. So yeah, what's lost here in this translation, in this differing? Not really anything. But there are some changes, and we'll talk about those. But I just want to address that because I can definitely see some people seeing this as like a pointless episode, because really all that happens for our main plot is they get a truck and we are introduced to characters and those characters are dead by the end of the episode. So like if you just kind of skip this episode altogether, you would just get like Joel and Ellie are here, and then Joel and Ellie are in a car, right? And you're not going to miss a lot of like context for their story, just some of like Joel's inspiration and motivations for later on. But this episode is more to illustrate, like Kayla was saying, like the effect love can have on you, but it also, you know, is, you know, really showing the effects of the world over these 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, how this world can affect you and how the world was before you meet someone that you care about, and how the world, you know, is once you've found someone. And there's more to it than that, and we'll talk more about that. But okay, so the Joel and Ellie stuff, you know, Joel and Ellie are going into this convenience store and are gonna loot, right? And this is you know, typical Last of Us. We see a couple references to the game in that way, as far as like looting or upgrades or whatever. We see Joel's toolbox, right? So he gains a toolbox. In the game, there's like, you know, 5 levels of toolboxes that you can get, and every time you find one, you can upgrade your weapons better. We also see the you know, upgrade table
Which was really cool.
Which is really
it
neat.
like lit up the same way that it does in the game when you go over to the workstation to work on your guns. So
I definitely would have loved to see Joel work on a gun.
Sure.
For like 10 seconds. Nothing.
I just wanted to see his looting animation where he's just like grabbing so many things.
And the noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it was cool. Those little nods are very exciting to see.
Yeah, you don't need anything more than that, right? Like it's just he's grabbing. Anyways, that's later in the episode. So he's going in there. He's looking for something. Ellie, very, very naively, she goes down into this like hatch basement by herself.
Yeah.
She is able to secure some tampons for herself, which is, those
very
would be very
excited
hard
about,
to come by.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Although I would think that if those have been down there for 20 years, would the cotton have like?
I don't know.
Would that work anymore? Like, would they?
Well, they're
would it be,
contained like in plastic, so
I guess, yeah.
probably would be okay if the box was intact, and yeah.
Okay. I just thought maybe something would like get inside.
I mean, yeah, I would not use post-apocalypse tampons.
Just let it bleed.
Yeah,
just let
everything
it
else
go.
is bleeding in the world.
Right. So yeah, then she finds an infected down there, trapped in the rubble. And as I had suspected as soon as I saw it, this was going to be Ellie's first kill. Mm-hmm. And this is a, kind of an intimate moment for her to do this on her own. She's down there, Joel is protecting her, and she's never had this opportunity. And she asks him, like, what it's like. And, like, do you ever feel bad?
Right. Do you ever think about when they were people?
Yeah.
And all of that, yeah.
And so she goes and she kind of cuts them open. She's studying them to a degree, right? This is a rare opportunity for someone where they get to be up this close to infected and be able to kind of she's doing her own like kind of anatomy class, right?
Sure, she's safely able to like observe.
Yeah, she's cutting his little flesh open, seeing the fungus underneath the skin, which is what's controlling his movements.
Yeah, I really like that we get in this scene, like we get her emotions, that she goes from her curiosity and kind of just, interest, and then obviously she moves to anger, and that's kind of what drives her to kill. It's not like she doesn't kill it out of compassion or, anything like that. It's definitely an anger that is showing in her then.
Yeah. I mean, a part of it is going to be that, Riley's that now.
Well, right.
Right? Yeah, or this is what she's supposed to be at this point. Right? She's kind of looking at what she was meant to be and what she's not and what her girlfriend is now. Because in the game, we don't really know Riley's fate. Right. We just know that they were going to, I don't want to get too much into spoilers for people who don't know the game, but like, we don't know her fate. And so whether or not that will be addressed in the show, I don't know. Right. But regardless, I do think there's a part of it where she's kind of thinking of Tess, she's thinking of Riley, she's thinking of everybody. It's like I'm looking in the face of the thing that has ruined everything.
Of course, yeah.
Right? And this is her first time to kind of be, it's almost like a movie, right? It's like a safe thrill, right? Where you get to kind of sit there and observe and you're not really in any danger. Yeah. Right. So that was cool. It was an interesting moment for Ellie. We get nothing like that in the game where she does her first zombie kill or infected kill, and it's like this like alone moment.
Right. Yeah. It's a nice one, and the effects, of course, on the infected are amazing. I mean, it just looks so good, and that's the shot that we get in the trailer too, the close up of the eye and the face. So. That's this one.
The music thus far has of course been very Last of Us, very great, but there's some real like there's music in this that's playing during certain like really emotional scenes. and is just very reminiscent of any of those scenes in the game. Yes. And I really like how that was utilized. And you also get, like, this is jumping way ahead, but like in addition to that, like you get this homage to the opening title menu of The Last of Us 1, right, where it's just an open window.
Yes.
And it's like, you know, I expected like new game to pop up on the screen when that happened.
Yeah.
But it's just the way that they're able to kind of incorporate nods to the game while creating this new storyline with Bill and Frank. It's very beautiful. I'll be curious on what the consensus will be on this one. Currently holds a 9.9 on IMDb. So thus far, the homophobes and the people who have no attention span haven't come forward yet and started bombing this. But yeah, I mean, this isn't some agenda. I mean,
not at all.
Bill is gay in the game. So, I mean, I guess it was an agenda in 2013, so it's an agenda now, right? So people can't just be gay. It always has to be an agenda now.
Yeah, I thought that this episode, I mean, like, it's, you know, a very intimate episode, and it was just, I think that Nick Offerman did such a phenomenal job at showing, because, like, Bill's character, like, we know he's a doomsday prepper, like, he comes across that way, of course, in the game, like, he's very gruff and, you know, clearly not a people person, and I feel like in the show, what we get to see of him, it just makes so much sense, right? Like, he doesn't get on they're not buses, the freaking, like, transports where they're taking, like, all of his neighbors away to take them to the QZ zone. He stays underground, and then he gets the whole town to himself. And then when he, like, it's like 3 or 4 years, I think, after the fall, and he's been totally by himself when he finally meets Frank.
Yeah.
And just, like, their initial interaction was so, like, he's so awkward and unsure of himself and just kind of, like, doesn't know how to act around another person because it's been so long.
Sure.
And I just thought that, like, I even commented, I feel like their first interaction was really cool because, you know, when he lets Frank come inside and he's gonna feed him, and Frank's taking a shower and he probably hasn't had a shower in a really long time. You know, warm running water, and then of course Bill hasn't had any companionship in a while, so I thought it was cool that they're both, like, getting kind of creature comforts, you know, that they haven't had, and that are, you know, very nice. Obviously, I think that human companionship is more important than warm running water, but you know, that helps. Of course.
I like hot showers.
Yeah. And just, like, throughout the episode, like, and then, of course, like, Bill being a virgin and all of that stuff in the beginning of their relationship.
He's a gay virgin.
He's a gay virgin. He
had sex with a
girl once,
yeah.
But just, like, that would be... Just to be in a situation where already you, like, are antisocial and, like, you have a hard time connecting to people, but also it's the apocalypse and you're not going to probably meet anybody else, and you're gay and you never actually got to have the kind of relationship that you wanted to have with somebody.
Sure.
Like, for him to meet Frank really must have been, like, what is this, like, godsend, you know?
Sure. I mean, it's,
like...
this is, like, fate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way you can see this. Ellie was brought to Joel out of fate, and Nick Offerman, and Bill and Frank were brought together as well. When you were talking about him having the town to himself and kind of going off and doing his thing, there was a show, I think it was on FX, I don't know, 5-10 years ago at this point, The Last Man on Earth. Do you remember this show?
No. I don't think I ever watched it.
It reminded me of that a lot for the first, like, you know, when he's just driving off and he's going to the Home Depot by himself and he's just kind of building up his own town. And he's just, you know, kind of just living his life by himself.
Yeah.
And, like, the boredom of that. Like, you got a whole town.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got all these, you know, creature comforts that a lot of people on the outside don't, right? Like, you see how Joel and Tess live in the QZ, right? You see how Frank was doing when he had 10 or 9 other people with him, and now he's by himself. You know, he's living high on the hog. He's got, you know, a butcher's shack, and he's got freaking access to everything. He's a doomsday prepper, and this is like, you know, it's finally paying off. Right, like most of the time, those people are looked at like crazy people until something like this happens.
Right, and then they're super
like,
prepared.
Everyone's like, "Can I come in?"
But it's kind of like, what's the point of all of that if you don't have somebody to share it with?
Right, and he explains this very well, right, in his letter.
Yes.
Where I used to hate the world, right, and then something changed, you know, and then he started to like the world because this person showed him how to love.
Right.
Love the love the world, love people, love, you know, the idea of life in a different way. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. The episode is definitely very beautiful and wildly different. So in the game, if you haven't played it, the way it plays out is Joel and Ellie are coming to Bill. And they encounter some of his traps. Those are his signature. And Bill is nowhere near as organized and clean. And his town looks nothing like this. Right? Yeah. He's got like freaking, you know, Alexandria or something from Walking Dead. Like this is, this is a much different town that he lives in. Right. And inside his town, there are... walkers. See, I'm in Walking Dead. There's infected on the outskirts and whatever, and they blow themselves up like this. But like, you know, Joel and Ellie finally get to him after, you know, these big action sequences, and then they go out looking for this battery for a truck that Frank went out to look for a while ago and never came back, and they don't really know what happened to him. And then Bill and Joel and Ellie go out for this battery. And while they're out, they encounter a whole mess of different enemies, including a bloater, which we still haven't seen. They, you know, we didn't go to the school. We didn't go into the gymnasium to have the bloater sequence. So obviously they're showing like, they're saving the big bad. The bloater is going to be like the big bad of the infected. They're saving that for a later scene.
Yes.
So we don't get that. But, you know, we finally get to the place where we're going to go. We find the truck with the battery. The truck is, you know, exactly the same as it is in the show. There's so much attention to detail with that stuff. We even get Ellie getting her shirt.
Yes.
Her iconic shirt from the game. But anyway, yeah, they get there and they locate Frank's body. And Joel finds a note. And Frank had hung himself. Now, he wasn't sick, cancer or anything like that. He just hung himself because he had nothing else. And in the note, it tells us, it's a letter to Bill, if he ever finds it, that he hated him.
Yeah.
That he'd hated him, and he'd hated him for a long time, and that he was a stubborn bastard. It's a very, very hurtful letter. Like,
so hurtful.
There's nothing romantic about it in the end, right? It's a very ugly, sad note, and Bill kind of has to, you know, Joel has to decide whether or not to give it to him, right? Like, and then, you know, when you do give it to him, it's just this moment, this real sad moment of just him kind of looking at it and being like, well, fuck you too then.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, it does not end well or nice. And then they push the truck down the road and get it started.
And they leave.
Now, that truck does not start as well, I think, because they have to charge the battery up. Now, as I said, Bill's much more prepared. He has a freaking battery and a refrigerator all broken down into different components, where he's got, you know, the sulfuric acid and everything, like, in their own compartments. And Joel knows how to assemble this battery and charge it. Good thing for him. So yeah, like the fact that we get this like love story and that they do this kind of like you know, suicide pact together and die in each other's arms, and he leaves this very poetic letter for Joel is such a crazy departure from the game.
Yeah,
but
wildly different.
It gives much more like, what is Bill's character going to be in the show if they don't do this. He's just going to be a guy that they run into. He gets them to a place and then they leave. Right? Like, there's nothing really there. The only moment of, like, character that we get in the game is when Bill gets the letter. And that's really it. Other than that, we just know that he's kind of like a closeted, like, hermit, recluse, doomsday prepper kind of guy. Yeah. And that's all we really get. And he just doesn't want anyone touching any of his shit.
Right. Yeah, I think that we get so much of his character with the interpretation in this show. And like you had said, it does serve a really important purpose of pushing Joel more into that role that he needs to care about and protect Ellie, you know, above all else.
Not Tess, like it says in the note.
Which is it's sad, and that hurts a lot, you know, obviously for Joel to read it. But I feel like, you know, if Bill had been the same as, I mean, I would have enjoyed it, of course, if we got like an exact replication of that part of the story in the show. I would have been happy with it because it would have looked great and everything. But the changes that they make, you know, it makes more sense for the theme of the show being about love and how it can hurt us and help us in different ways. And it kind of gives us, like, hope for Joel. You know, like, we see what Bill's like before he meets Frank, and even throughout Frank and his relationship, like, he has to grow and learn. And so it kind of is like, well, Joel can grow and learn. Like, he's had loss, of course, but, you know, here's Ellie. Like, here's his new shot at redemption.
Sure. I mean, this entire show and game is going to be teaching Joel how to love again. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. And I think one of the best scenes, I think, and this might be like a big turnoff to some people, but, like, I think the best scene of the entire episode is Bill and Frank's sexual interaction in the bed. When he's, like, trying to touch him, and, like, you can just see he's kind of, like, stiff and, like, so scared. Like, scared, yeah. He doesn't know how to take anything. He pulls the towel off him, and he's just like...
I know. It's just like, oh.
Because I like the contrast, right, of this, like, you know, very self-sufficient, you know, tough guy who can take care of himself, and he set up this whole world where he, you know, is reliant on no one and needs nothing. But, like, in that moment, he really, like, realizes, like, what it's all for and, like, what he's been missing. And it's like, you know, this reminder of, like, yeah, I have all this shit, but, like, what is it without somebody to share it with? So,
well, and you also have to have somebody to, like, for love in that way, right? Like, it has to bounce off of another person. Like, you can't just be self-reliant. I mean, you know, you can be, of course, self-love is a thing, but as far as, like, relationships go, he needed somebody else there to show him how to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, we've also find out that the only reason that Joel and Tess, and that's another thing we need to talk about, is the flashback to Joel and Tess, so we get some more Anna Torv in here as Tess, which is great. And we get to find out that Joel and Tess were together for at least 13 years.
A long time.
Really long time.
Yes.
Like a really, really long time. And they feel like they've known each other at that point for a while. Mm-hmm. Maybe not. Maybe they've only known each other for a month. It doesn't seem like it, but how do I know? But we know for sure that they've known each other for at least 13 years. And it seems like they're the two of them. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming they're romantic at that point as well. Yeah. So this is not some, like, you know, whatever relationship to Joel. No. Like, he lost basically a wife.
Yes.
Right? Like, we focus a lot in the game on his depression and sadness and anger towards Ellie, as Sarah's death. Yeah. But with Tess, in the game, it is kind of just, you know, like, streamlined. Mm-hmm. Like, it just happens, and then you just get into these fights with Fedra, and then you're, you know, heading towards Bill, and then you're, like, checking out traps that he made and stuff. Like, there's no emotional, you know, pit stop
with
to
Tess.
mourn Tess's death in the game. and I really like exploring that Joel not only, of course, has the trauma of Sarah, but now Tess on his shoulders. And there's a really great moment between Joel and Ellie here, where Ellie, you know, in the beginning, before we get to the Bill storyline, where she, you know, outright tells him, like, you guys didn't have to take me.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so if you're going to fucking blame me, I'm going to tell you right now, don't.
Yeah, like
right?
It was a choice that you made.
He doesn't even say anything. He just gives her a look of like,
you're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right? And that, boom, you're done with that. Right? And they did that so well. How fast they were able to kind of have that exchange, and Joel was able to just give a look.
Right. But
and for it to be like, we're done.
Well, but still later in the episode, like towards the end, when they get the letter, she wants to talk about it. Yeah, Ellie wants to have that, and he of course shuts down again.
Of course, this is Joel.
Yeah, it is Joel. It is Joel.
But that's going to shift. Right, there's going to be a total paradigm shift with, you'll see. Anyway, but yeah, so Bill and Frank, they have their romance, and we do see some infighting. And when we saw the fighting, I was like, oh, here we go. This is where he bails.
It starts to go bad, yeah.
So when he comes in and he's got cancer.
Oh my gosh.
And he's old in a wheelchair, and Bill's all old looking. I was like, how's the stuff in the game gonna happen?
Right.
And then he was like, oh, you know, I put this in my drink, and then he's like, oh yeah, enough to kill a horse, I'm taking it too. And he's like, I disapprove it. I'm like, is he gonna throw that up? Is he gonna like knock it out of his hand? Is he gonna like, what's gonna happen here? Is he gonna, you know, wake up in the morning and then be pissed that he didn't die with his lover? Like, nope.
Sure.
Nope. He just dies and leaves the car. I'm totally fine with this. Totally fine. It's a dramatic change, but not really, because it changes nothing
for Joel and Ellie
about the story and our main protagonist's journey.
Yeah,
right? Exactly. It does nothing to alter their path.
No.
It only serves to enrich characters, and it only serves to enrich, you know, Joel's and Ellie's storyline. Yes. Especially Joel's, because he knows Bill. You know, Ellie never interacts with Bill, ever.
No.
Which is weird, because I was definitely looking forward to Ellie and Bill interacting, because their interaction in the game is funny. Yeah. They really don't like each other. But yeah, so that stuff's all different. Yeah, then we move into, you know, Joel and Ellie arrive, they find the stuff, they loot. As we already said, Ellie gets her t-shirt. They shower. That must be nice.
Ellie also gets a gun that she finds.
She does get a gun.
She sneaks it.
So this is different.
Yeah.
Obviously in the game, something else happens. Now, I don't know how that will play out. But I'm assuming it will play out the exact same way as it did before with Ellie having a gun. Right? Like, that's all that's going to change.
Right.
Right? It's that she took it now. She didn't just find it later.
Right.
So that's fine. I mean, we're going to still get to the same place, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
Right? And as Neil Druckmann said in these, like, after, you know, the behind the scenes kind of videos that they have, they're very short, unfortunately.
Yeah, they're like 3-4 minutes.
You know, they were talking about how the changes that they made, it's like, you know, they came to this agreement of like, we only change it if it's better. Right? And if it isn't, then we don't change it. Right? We do everything the same, and if we come up with any changes that are better, then those are the ones we use. And yeah, I mean, I'd have no problems with anything used. They do loot as they're getting ready to leave, and Ellie definitely had to have picked up a porno magazine and a Savage Starlight comic. Yeah. I better fucking see those in the next episode when they're in the truck. I better see it. Savage Starlight more than the porno mag. I need to see it. It needs to happen.
It does.
I need it, and that's where it's supposed to happen. So I'm glad she didn't find. I'm glad we didn't see her put it in her bag or anything.
Yes.
No, we're saving it.
See her pull it out.
It's such a stupid small Easter egg. If they don't
It'd
show
just
it,
be so
I'll be
cute,
like
though.
mildly bummed.
Yeah.
I'll be pretty majorly bummed. But it's not going to affect my love of the show at all.
Yeah.
It'll just be like, come on, guys. You know we all want to see a Savage Starlight. We got freaking, Curtis and Viper 2 DVD. Right, which Ellie and Joel were watching.
Sarah and Joel.
No,
you're right.
In the game.
Yeah. In the game.
In part 2, she talks about it with Dina. How that's what they're, that they were into, and Joel's really into action movies and all this and that. So getting a Curtis and Viper 2 DVD, which we didn't get to talk about in the first, because there's just so many things to cover, and my brain's going in a million different directions, and it's like, oh yeah, like little connections and cute little Easter eggs and stuff. There's so many cool things. They get it in the truck and they drive off, and we are starting throughout this, right? I like the very mild progression, but a good progression of Joel warming up to and wanting to protect Ellie.
There's a slow bonding happening that's really satisfying to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, finally, the only thing we really didn't talk about is the graveyard that Joel and Ellie come across when she's like, you don't want to see this. And then you see and once again, I mean, this show just really likes to shove in your face that this is not the world you know.
Right.
And this is not the show that you know. Every episode just seems to, not every episode, but in the first episode we get 2 children's deaths, and in this one we see a baby skeleton with this blanket wrapped around it, and then it like morphs to 20 years ago, and it's like the mom holding the baby, and it's like they drive off in the back of the trucks, and it's like they're going to be freaking executed in a field.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, oh my god, how grim.
So grim.
So Bill Bill would have been killed. Yeah. Had they found him, they would have driven him out into that field, which wasn't far away. Yep. And just pushed them all out of there and just shot them all to death. Yeah. So Bill, hiding.
Right choice.
Not only does he have the doomsday prepper thing going on that he can survive this, but he also has the bunker, which has that like cool, dresser.
Oh,
that lifts up, and it has like
really
that
cool.
was super cool. But yeah, he's much more tidy, much more neat, much more prepared and whatnot in this version.
And like watching him the cooking and stuff that he does. He's
my god,
refined, and he's like pairing the right wine with rabbit or whatever.
Such a different Bill.
He can play piano and sing and like all those little details too, because like Frank wants to play the piano and he's like making all these mistakes and singing super loud and kind of out of key or whatever. And then when Bill sits down, he plays really beautifully and is singing much more it's like softly, and it's just, you can tell obviously who's had access to the piano and time to practice versus who's been out in the wilderness trying to survive.
Yeah. Anything else? I wish I would have seen a scene where Bill and Frank were playing the piano together.
Yeah, that would
like they kind of like he taught him how to be more refined like him. But yeah, a much different episode than I expected. After the first 2, I definitely thought we were going to follow along with the story more than we did with this one. But no real complaints, just saying. No. So we had heard rumors that there was going to be an episode that was basically void of Joel and Ellie. This has got to be that episode. I cannot imagine that they do this again. There should be no more. I mean, we only have 6 episodes left, and we have a lot to cover. So the last episode's got to be at least an hour and a half, not 2 hours long.
Yeah, there's no way we're going to spend a lot of time away from Joel and Ellie going forward.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's that.
That's that.
I had like one more thing I was gonna say, but I'm not remembering what it was. Now I know that it was like, we knew that episode was gonna happen. That there was gonna be this kind of episode. The next episode's only 50 minutes long, so like 30 minutes shorter than this,
which is crazy.
And I'm assuming we're going to meet a couple major characters here. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Trying to keep it spoilery free for the... I know in the first episode I said that I was just going to talk freely about all the games and everything. And if that ever needs to happen, I'll save it kind of for the end and be like, hey, for game fans, let's talk about this. But there's nothing here that I need to talk about that is for the future of the games currently.
No.
Right? Like, the only difference here is that, if The Last of Us 3 was to ever happen, like, I don't know why they'd bring Bill back for any reason, but at the end of the first game, with Bill's story, he is still alive. Yeah. In this, he's not. But other than that, I mean, there's nothing really... No. There's nothing really to worry about there. So that's that. We're done. Anything more to say? No. Nope. Yeah, much more, much slower. I thought this was actually going to be pretty action-packed with all of
I did too.
I thought we were going to see the bloater scene in the gymnasium. I thought we were going to see like a bunch of like traps going off. We did see raiders in this coming after his property and stuff. That's a little action sequence, but
a little
very slow episode.
Yeah.
Very, very slow. So, but, until next week. Now, next week we will be in California.
Yeah.
We will be watching this episode, but we probably won't get the video up until Monday night, Tuesday morning. Yeah. It just is what it is. We're not going to be home till Monday night.
Yeah. So
we'll try, but we only can do what we can do.
Exactly.
So, all right, guys. Till next week. Bye.